Welcome, everybody. Hi to my episode, or this episode, I should say, of my Six Figure Pro series of webinars. It looks like there's a lot of people on the phone. There's even more people online listening, and we are live this afternoon. And today, the whole reason that I'm doing the Six Figure Pro series of webinars designed to help you in every step of your adventure in helping find your next six-figure job fast. My name is Tammy Kabell. You may or may not be familiar with me. I'm going to forego my regular introduction just to let you know I'm the owner of an executive career firm here in Kansas City, in the Kansas City area, called Career Resume Consulting. And this is a very exciting webinar this month, mainly because I get to announce that I have a new and improved website. Still the same URL, careerresumeconsulting.com, but it has a whole lot of free resources. There's sample resumes now. There's instructions on writing good resumes, instructions on negotiating, informational interviewing, a lot more information. So if you haven't been to my website in the last week, go take a look. One of my proudest achievements for the new site is my new 42-page report, which is called The 10 Things You Must Do in Order to Get Your Next Six-Figure Job Fast. And it contains a tremendous amount of instruction, and it's completely free. So you can find it under the Free Resources tab. Just enter your email address, and it'll be sent to you. Again, it's careerresumeconsulting.com, and it's under the tab Free Resources. But again, because I've spent time talking about my site, I'm not going to go into my normal introduction. If you'd like to know more about me, you can find out a great deal about me on my history on my website. So let's go ahead and get started. Today's webinar is about pitching your one big idea, and we'll talk about what that is. That's your core marketing message to really anybody that'll listen. That's going to include employers, recruiters, anyone that you're networking with. So I'm going to go over exactly how to do this during networking conversations, phone conversations, and phone interviews, and also face-to-face interviews. So this webinar is going to be useful for anyone who can use some additional assistance in networking and explaining what they do in a way that will be memorable. And it's particularly applicable for people who will be interviewing, which hopefully will be all of you at some point. And it'll give you a specific process to follow to set yourself apart from every other candidate out there. With six-figure positions, this is especially important. I was at the Northland Career Fair just this past week, and I was really surprised at the number of people who didn't know how to introduce themselves properly. This is one of the reasons that I feel that this information is so important. The foundation of the information that I'm going to share with you today is your audio business card. And if you've been following my webinar for a few months, you've heard me talk about your audio business card. I believe it was in February's webinar. If you haven't heard it, it is worth your time to listen to February's webinar, which is also now available on my new website. Again, under free resources, just look up webinars. We've got over a year, a full year of webinars that you can listen to, and they're all very instructional. They're not hypey. I don't sell things on them. It's just free information for you. If you're unfamiliar with the audio business card concept, we're going to go over the components of your ABC, and in this hour you'll understand how to use it and why it's so effective. You'll find that I'm going to be talking really fast today because I've got a ton of information to share with you. And I'm hoping that we can still have about 10 minutes at the end to cover any kind of, whether it be questions about how to use your audio business card, or if you'd like help in constructing your audio business card, your ABC, as I'll call it, I'd be happy to help you with those live. We'll cover three of the 5 steps of pitching your one big idea. And once you understand and master those 5 steps, a lot of the mystery of marketing yourself into a new job disappears. So personal marketing communication, whether verbal or written, all of it goes through these 5 steps, as I'll explain. But before we get started, I just want to remind everybody that you're on mute, And if you have a question during the discussion and you're on the phone, you can press *2. And if you're listening online via the web page, you can type in your question in the lower left-hand corner of the page. I'm going to go ahead and, on our settings, take the beeps off so that as people listen in later, as they come in during the hour, we don't hear the beeps. So I just took that off. So hopefully we'll have 10 minutes at the end to answer your questions. And if you'd like to be coached on producing a great audio business card, I would prefer that you do that over the phone. So if you're listening online and you'd like to be coached, then go ahead and call in. And all of the dial-in information is in the email that you received earlier today. So this is especially important if you have an interview coming up. It's good to have this audio business card. So let's get started. So let me start by giving you a definition of what I call the one big thing. Marketing, there are some marketers that call pitching the one big thing, the one big idea. It's your core marketing message. That is, it's what defines you as a worker, if you will. It defines you, whether you're a leader, whether you're someone who saves a company money, whether you're someone who makes a company money. It sets you apart from your competition, and it's relevant to what you're looking to do in your next position. And it's best framed in an audio business card, which we'll go over in just a minute. Let me also define marketing conversation, because I'm going to use the term marketing conversation quite a bit this hour. When you're putting yourself out there in the job market, putting yourself out there in the world, really, making yourself known, another way to say that is personal marketing. And if you read a lot of career blogs or career articles, one of these buzzwords is personal marketing. It's something that I've been doing for the past 9 years, but it's something that's becoming very popular now that we've got 8 or 9, almost 10% sometimes unemployment. You've got a lot of people out there. Right now, you got about 20 million job seekers out there. That includes people who are unemployed, people who are underemployed, and then the people who want to find something better, that are looking for something else. So you've got a lot of competition. And you're marketing yourself. So until someone knows you, you're just a commodity, just like a can of soup, and I've said that before. So you really have to do some marketing just like you would market a can of soup, or maybe more aptly like a political candidate with a core message. Political candidates a lot of times have core messages and a platform and talking points. I know in the current presidential race, after the candidates get through bashing each other, sooner or later we're going to hear their core marketing message or their core message and their platform. And since job seeking doesn't allow you to bash your competition, nor would you want to, you have to come up with your own core marketing message now rather than later. And marketing conversations are how you introduce that marketing message. All right, so you're going to be taking a lot of notes this hour. I want you to get out your pen and paper, and I want to give you a quick overview of the 5 steps of pitching your one big idea. We're going to be going over the 3 of them in detail today, and then I will do another webinar that goes over the last 2. But here are the 5 steps of pitching your one big idea. The first one is, again, audio business card. It's simply a verbal form of your core marketing message. It's the verbal equivalent of headlines in a sales page. And the purpose of headlines and also your audio business card is to gain attention and gain interest. Number 2, it's questions. That's really probably the most important part of the whole pitch, the one big idea or the one big thing conversation. Verbally, we ask questions to learn if a networking partner is able to help us, or in the case of an employer or a recruiter, if we are able to help them. Questions are the most important part, and I'll explain why later. Number 3, answers. When a person asks you questions, whether in a networking conversation or in an interview, you need to have good answers. And you also need to keep the conversation going. So we'll talk about techniques to doing this correctly, and I'll also give you a really good example, I believe, of how to keep the conversation going in a successful interview and what that sounds like. And then number 4 and number 5, those are ones that we'll cover. We'll probably do that next month. Number 4 is call to action, and you may have heard that before. I use a call to action every time I write a resume. Call to action basically is you're telling someone what you want them to do. So once you've asked questions and you've given answers, you need to ask for action. And this is something that all marketers do, but it's not a familiar concept to nearly all job seekers. So this is one of the things that will set you apart from 98% of your competition. And then number 5 is follow-up. Finally, there needs to be some kind of follow-up to your call to action. Usually you shouldn't have to wait for a networking partner. I may be calling them networking prospects, or a recruiter or even an employer to get back to you. There are really good ways of following up proactively to where you're not being a bother, you're not being a pain, but you can still get what you need. Following up is really important, and it's probably one of the number one things that is lacking in a great in someone who isn't getting a job very fast, is the amount of follow-up that they do. Okay, so that's the overview. That's the big picture. So let's now go into a good amount of detail into the first 3 of these 5 steps. To the degree, and this is important, to the degree that you understand these 5 steps and you're able to apply them to your job search is to the degree that you'll be successful in your marketing efforts. You really don't have to look anywhere else. As far as marketing goes for your job, this is it. But know that we're going to spend our time today, again, mainly on the first 3. The call to action and the follow-up process is worth an entire hour's discussion by itself. And I plan on holding a separate webinar. Like I said, it's probably going to be next month on how to do those correctly. I've got a ton of advice on those. So let's go to number 1. Let's dive into number 1, which is the audio business card. I'd like for you to, again, refer to February's webinar to listen to that hour-long discussion. If you haven't listened to it, it's worth listening to on how to compose your audio business card. But we'll quickly review the 3 parts of the audio business card. Also, earlier today, I sent out an email that allows you to get access to a document that walks you through that. That's the audio business card worksheet, and you can find that on, I'd have to check. You should have gotten an email on it, but it would be under careerresumeconsulting.com/webinar-docs. And webinar is WEBINAR-docs, and then put a / after that. I think that will help get you there. Okay? I'll give you just a moment to take a look at that. Okay, audio business card, how it works and how to use it. I've talked about what it is. We'll go over it very quickly, and then I'm going to talk about how to use it, because I think that a lot of people they work really hard on their audio business card, but then they don't really know how to use it effectively. So I've said it a lot before. The purpose of the audio business card is to gain attention and to gain interest. It's a conversation starter. It's an initial impression. So when you use an audio business card, you're looking for some degree of this kind of response, kind of a, ooh, that's for me, like if you're talking to an employer, or if you're talking to a networking partner or a networking prospect, tell me more. So when you get that response, you're getting their attention. And depending on the strength of your audio business card, you may barely be getting their attention, but at least this response is better than just a total blank look, and it gets the conversation rolling. So if you haven't listened to the audio business card, really what the webinar, really what it does is answer the question, if you're in a networking situation, when somebody says, so what do you do? Or if you're talking to an employer or a recruiter And it could be the first part of the introduction when they ask the question, so tell me about yourself. It's a different way of introducing yourself. A lot of people, when they say, tell me what you do or tell me what you're looking for, they just give a definition of a job title. So they say, well, I'm really looking for a director of sales position. What happens is the first thing that somebody thinks is, well, do I know of an open director of sales position available? And if they don't, then you're pretty much dead in the water and they can't help you. But the audio business card has 3 basic components, and if you do it this way, it really opens up the door to a way of introducing yourself that other people can help you a lot more. The basic components are your target company and the problem that you would solve, and then the outcome, in other words, the benefit of hiring you. And I'm really going to add a 4th one today that isn't in that audio business card worksheet that I've supplied you, and that is the story. So we'll talk about that. The target company and the problem you solve, it's something like, well, I work with XYZ type of company. It could be the size. It could be the industry, if applicable. So I work with small to mid-sized companies in the technology industry who have this kind of problem or this kind of issue or challenge. And then you explain what your expertise is and how you solve it. And you can refer to that worksheet today to build your own. But let me give you a good example of one that a current client of mine is using. So he's in sales, and his audio business card, when somebody says, well, what are you looking for? And when he's in an interview, when they say, well, what do you tell me about yourself? Well, you know how some small to mid-sized companies in this economy are really struggling to keep their market share? They're losing customers, and they can't seem to land those bigger accounts. Well, that's my expertise. I'm able to bring back those lost customers and go after those big flagship accounts and do it pretty quickly so that the company can start to grow again in a matter of months, even in this economy. So, wow, that's pretty different than I'm looking for a director of sales position. And put some teeth into that, talk about what the companies get from hiring you and not what you actually do for a living. I call that process speak. Don't go into process speak. And it takes some practice. It's like learning lines in a play. And what I do with my clients is I work with them to figure out those 3 pieces, the types of companies they want to work with, and what the problems are that they solve, and what the benefit is that the company will get in hiring them. But you really have to make it your own words. So you repeat it a lot, like learning lines in a play. So after a few times, you get pretty good at it, and after a lot of times, you get even better at it. So, at this point, the person that you're talking to may ask you to tell them more. And I like to think of it as, when I say putting teeth into it, alligator ultimate results. Remember, it's not a boring cow. Like, I'm looking for a sales leadership position in a small to mid-sized company that I can help grow. That's boring. You need something like before, where I'm able to get that company to start to grow again in a matter of months, even in this economy. I can bring back those lost customers and go after those big flagship accounts, something like that. Now, what I've found, or what my clients have found, is when you use this ABC, you usually get a really big smile from the other person. I've actually heard from multiple clients that have been told by employers, that's about the best introduction I've heard from anybody in my life. Now, when you're introducing yourself in an interview, you go into a little bit more detail, and I'll go over that in a moment. But when you get follow-up questions about what you do, if you get that big smile, wow, so tell me how you do that, then it's time to tell a story. And the stories need to be brief, they need to be to the point, and they follow what's called marketing syntax. In other words, target, problem, outcome. So you don't need a lot of embellishment. You do need to make it vivid enough that they'll remember the story. But the story's going to have a lot more impact if you produced a significant and a measurable result for the company. Let's say, like, another current client of mine that your core strength or your one big thing is to get people to work together. So the story might be for him, well, I recently worked with a family-owned business that was experiencing a lot of internal personality conflict. And as a result, they really weren't moving forward steadily in their business, and their profits were slipping. In fact, their profits were slipping about 15% over that past year. And so I worked with them individually to solve that conflict and get them back on track, and the profits were up by 30% in the last 6 months. So that, again, is impressive. If you deliver your audio business card more or less as outlined above, you're really doing well. You've got the attention of your audience. So your marketing message will have gotten through, and they understand the essence of what type of employer you're looking for. Maybe it's small to mid-sized businesses, which small businesses are still considered $250 million in annual revenue or less. Mid-size is $250 to $500 million in annual revenue or less. So you may say small to mid-sized businesses, and in certain industries if you're interested in that. And then the expertise or the problems that you solve. So far, so good. That'll get you on first base, and you've laid a beginning marketing foundation with that person. And again, the person can be a networking contact. It can be a recruiter. It can be an employer. It really can be somebody that you're in line with at a long grocery store line. Costco, for instance, has some long lines. But this is where everything can go wrong once you give them that ABC. So this is the reason why I'm holding this webinar today. The question is, what happens after you use that audio business card? So where does the conversation go? One reason that we get in trouble here, I think, is that our expectations aren't realistic. So when we use the audio business card, we really don't want to just get onto first base, do we? What do we want? We want to hit a home run. And so when we use the message, we want to get a response. That rarely happens. We want, for instance, if you're talking to an employer, we want an employer to go, oh, wow, you do that? That's incredible. I've been looking for somebody who could do that for years and years. My prayers are finally answered. Look, I got a spare $500,000 to spend on this issue. Can you start working with me right away? Can you start work on Monday? Now, that may be a little over the top, but when I give that scenario to my clients, I get a lot of laughs, and they're laughs of recognition. And they say, yeah, we do want to hit a home run. We're trying to get that audio business card perfect so that when we use it, people aren't just interested in what we have to offer. They're excited to know more, and they're willing to meet with us and hire us on the spot. Now, I did have that happen actually once recently, but it's once in a blue moon. And you think about my audio business card, which is I help my clients land their next six-figure jobs in weeks and not months. Now, that took me 6 months to come up with and really hone down to one sentence. And, yeah, it makes you want to learn more, but have I hired somebody just because they hear me say that? No, I have to develop a relationship first. So for you to think that someone's going to offer you a job or really be so salivatingly interested in you that they're ready for you to sign on the bottom line. For the most part, it's a nice aspiration, but there's really a word for that, and that's delusion. So audio business cards can get you on first base. They simply can't get you a home run. It really just doesn't happen, virtually never. And, in fact, the one that it did happen that I just mentioned with a recent client of mine, there was some other expertise building he had to do. It wasn't just his audio business card. Now, it blew the person away that listened to it, and he got hired within a couple of days, which was really cool, but there was other expertise that he had to show as well. But I don't want you to be setting up your expectations so that you're constantly disappointed every time you talk with someone about what you're looking for in your next position. That audio business card can get you attention and set up the next part of your pitch for your, quote, one big thing. So now let's talk about the key to successful pitching of your one big thing, and that is asking questions and listening. And I'm going to tell you how to do that correctly. So after you've used your audio business card, what you don't do is keep talking about yourself. It's done its job. So now you can go to the next step and that is asking questions and listening. Remember, I said this is the most important part of the marketing conversation, and I wasn't kidding. You can get a whole lot further with a networking prospect or an employer or a recruiter if you put your attention on them and you learn more about their situation. So after you've used your audio business card and perhaps you've told a story, then you start asking the other person questions. And remember, I'm talking about in a networking situation or in an interview. This works both ways. You really want to find out more about the other person, the person across the desk or the person at the same table with you. Okay? Sometimes it's better to forget about the audio business card and just start by asking questions of the other person, especially in a networking situation, and you use your ABC later when they ask you what you do. So what questions do you ask? It really depends on the scenario. But I'm going to give you a very simple but powerful technique of asking questions and listening, and you can use it in a wide variety of situations. And I want to detail those situations for you. And again, here's a place that you take notes. You can use it in networking or business and professional meetings. Talking about business in these type of meetings is expected, so it's a perfect place to initiate marketing conversations. It's also the hunting ground for businesses where there's a lot of opportunity to meet a wide variety of business owners who could be your next employer. There are some chambers of commerce, I know OLESA Chamber is one of them, that allow job seekers to visit their Chamber of Commerce networking meetings for free. So hunt those out, and they are full of business owners, and those are the people you want to talk to. Those are your centers of influence. Secondly, there's social situations, and that might be a party or a dinner with friends or really any social situation. This can even include parent events like PTA or soccer or like a book club or a gardening club. Remember, as long as you're affiliated, it's easy to have these conversations. Someone asks you what you do, and you're off and running. And then also stranger situations. I don't mean like stranger like weird. I mean stranger as in you don't know the person. Ever get into a conversation in a movie line or at an airport, in a grocery store? You start talking to somebody and you discover some things that you have in common and you ask them what they do. Well, the thing you have in common is your affiliation, and it's not a strong connection, but it's not unusual for marketing conversations to happen. And again, going back to what is a marketing conversation, it's introducing yourself and letting somebody new know that you're in the job market. And sometimes business cards get exchanged that way. It actually happened to me recently at a baggage carousel in San Francisco that I was waiting for my bags. It ended up being a really good affiliation. So another one is by telephone interview. When someone calls you by phone, and that could be in response to a job you posted for, or a resume you sent them, or they found you on LinkedIn. And at LinkedIn, boy, guys, if you guys aren't on LinkedIn, then it's someplace that you've really got to be on right now, because 19% of all employers and recruiters last year used LinkedIn as their only form of looking for people to fill positions. So get on it. So let's say you get a phone call from LinkedIn, but remember, you're in a marketing conversation first. It's not a selling conversation. You're not selling yourself. They ask you about yourself, and you can turn the tables and find out more about them. After all, how can you sell someone on yourself if you don't know anything about them or their problems or their needs?